Empire building, army management, and diplomacy. The Civilization series is getting a new game with Civ VII, but maybe you don't like what you're seeing. We've had a lot of options in recent years. Old World, Humankind, Atre, History Untold, Millennia, but you want more? Good news! There are other new 4X strategy games that you can play, but will you want to lead in any of them? Let's find out. Founding your empire. The newly announced Endless Legend 2. That's right, from Amplitude Studios, who brought you Endless Legend and Humankind. They have announced that they are indeed making Endless Legend 2. And this is a fantasy setting 4X strategy game where there's supposed to be storytelling and many factions and units, and this one we haven't seen too much yet, and there's a number of things that we would want to look out for as we find out more through the year. So first of all, they are going to be having some internal testing. You can become an insider and then provide feedback, because Endless Legend and Civilization have sort of been entwined. In fact, Amplitude Studios and Firaxis, their game designs tend to circle each other. Civ VI got districts, which we saw in Endless Legend. Humankind also brought the Civ changing idea, and Civ VII suddenly has that. So these games tend to borrow from each other, and that's generally a good thing, because these competing games means we get better games overall. But Endless Legend had a number of things like customizing the equipment of each individual unit, which some players found overwhelming, while other players found that added the complexity they wanted. And then we got Humankind, which some people really enjoyed, and it looked great and played good if you liked those mechanics. But some of the mechanics, like maybe the regions or the changing of civs, some people didn't quite vibe with those very well, and that's why Civ VII going in that direction is interesting. And now Amplitude is back with Endless Legend 2, and through the internal testing and the feedback they receive, that will determine a number of details on how this one plays out. So this is a Fantasy 4X, there are heroes, there are civilizations, there are factions, and there's gonna be a lot of stuff like that, and we will have to wait and see if Endless Legend 2 first can surpass the first game, but also appeal to maybe a wider audience this time around, without sacrificing the nuance that they bring with this series. And then we've got Atre, Dominance Wars. Here you are trying to attain the powers of a god to dominate in a lore-driven, narratively styled 4X game, full of unique species and stories to explore. You'll be evolving your units and commanding these diverse armies, and you're building cities, researching spellcraft, and of course, battling magical wars with other factions. This one, at first glance, does look very promising. Visually, it looks quite interesting and well developed. You will be building settlements, you're spellcasting like a god, forging artifacts. Your avatars are immortal generals living through the ages, and the narrative style, the narrative choices is something that has been becoming more and more common in 4X games. We've seen it in Old World, we saw it in Humankind, and Civ VII is getting them, and this one is leaning harder into those narrative choices where you are making world-changing decisions. There are consequences for your actions here. Now, this one is coming in 2025, and there is quite a bit of interest in it. We will be seeing more details as it builds to release later in the year. Speaking of narrative 4X, Liegecraft. Here you are the king. And the interesting thing about Liegecraft is that it's kind of a 4X RPG. So you are leading your vassals, building your feudal realm, conquering foreign kingdoms, and you are playing in turn-based 4X, but also real-time RPG. You might be wanting the more zoomed out playstyle and not wanting the zoomed in playstyle, or maybe you enjoy this blend. Whenever genres blend and mix like this, it could hit just right, or it could be a kind of a confusing mess. So this one, you are playing a character, and every character in the game has their own mind. So promoting loyalty and scheming against rivals and imprisoning the disobedient, you are trying to manage your kingdom, but your subjects have a mind of their own. So how do you get them to do what you want them to do? Just giving the orders doesn't mean they're gonna do it. So you really do have to play the politics and diplomacy in this one, and make choices that will affect your kingdom and the world around you. Managing those vassals, expanding your kingdom, attending and hosting events which are part of politics, and waging wars and fighting duels. You will also be able to create custom maps, and modding support is included as well. This is planning to enter early access in 2025, and they're planning for at least 6 months in early access, and sometimes they manage to stick to such a short early access schedule, but expect it to go longer. We will know more of Liegecraft when it finally does release into early access. Hey, now that you're a bit into the list, I'm sure you're enjoying it, so it'd be greatly appreciated if you can like the video. Get any game on GOG using the referral link below to support. Also, be sure to check out the Patreon for more exclusive videos. Thank you. Alright, next game. Yield Fall of Rome. Here is one that I've been watching for a little bit, and it's an interesting 4X, maybe gameplay-wise, feeling a bit more on the straightforward side, but visually it is... nothing else quite looks like this. It looks like a woven, a very tactile feeling and looking visual style, and you are playing these kingdoms and empires in this map in a board game fashion. It is a turn-based 4X strategy game. As the world crumbles around you, you are trying to rebuild civilization and shape your people's destiny, using strategy, conquering provinces, and crushing your opponents who stand in your way. Now, this one did release into early access to few but mostly positive user reviews on Steam, so you can see what this game is right now, and they've been updating more content, there's been a hotfix, and there is a roadmap for new campaigns, and new factions and buildings and units, and a custom co-op map editor is coming as well, along with multiplayer seasons. So this one is in development still, very clearly, and the early access label is accurate. But having said that, there isn't anything else that really looks like this, and although it does reminisce to many other games gameplay-wise, I think it does have enough unique things which make it worth a look. And they're planning for 12 to 18 months in early access, so full release is gonna be in 2026, but over the year, Yield Fall of Rome might be enticing some of you. For more indie-looking 4X, Feudums. Here we have a feudalistic online turn-based strategy with zero pay-to-win is being promised. Now, that means they are leaning into a free-to-play model, and that's not always the most convincing start to a Steam description, but this one is supposed to be blending 4X with grand strategy and idle elements. So this is not gonna be for everyone. But for some of you, there is some positive news as well. They have also announced that there will be single player modes to Feudums. So this one is trying to be a number of things, and it's a little unclear if you're gonna like it or not. So good news, at the time of recording, there is a free demo for you to try for this one. You can try this at your own pace. There is supposed to be casual play styles, but you could also play hardcore. And there's large scale battles and scheming and planning in this feudal society as you try to maintain your domain while also conquering more of the world around you. Modding support is also supposed to be a thing, so that's nice to see as well. So the tricky thing here is that it's built for a free-to-play online experience with microtransactions, but the microtransactions at the moment are not implemented, but that is the plan to add them in later on. But also they've announced this single player mode where you could play Feudums as a solo player, possibly offline. That means this game is splitting and adding more modes of play. And that's always a challenge, trying to accommodate both styles. Single player, like just offline play, but also free to play online with microtransactions. How do you balance the game? Will they be different? Will they be the same? So Feudums is a curious one, which we will be seeing more of in the coming year, but also the free demo does at least allow us to jump in and give it a try before committing anything. For another indie one, Elaborate Lands. This is meant to be a relaxing turn-based strategy game, combining the gameplay mechanics from 4X with some city builder and puzzle builder games, notably the puzzle building, city building kind of games we've seen a lot of recently. And in this one, you are building cities, gathering resources, researching technologies, and expanding your territory. And this chill city building style of 4X is something that we're seeing more of. And actually, speaking of and thinking of Civilization VII, Civilization VI introduced the unstacked cities in the Civ series, which we saw in Endless Legend before that. The unstacked cities where you're building districts on tiles and you're not just having a single tile city, that kind of thing, right? In Civ VII, the city building and unstacked cityness has gotten to a point where I feel like you could almost play Civ VII as a city builder. Like if you're just on your own in the game, building cities and expanding your districts and placing buildings, I can see a lot of people enjoying that kind of gameplay. A peaceful, no combat, no other player run of Civ VII. And Elaborate Lands leans all in onto that, really. It's just this relaxing building game where you are just expanding your empire in maybe a more peaceful way. Now, if you're unsure if you would be into this, there is also a free demo for this one at the time of recording, and you can try out the production and resource management. You're dealing with population demands and all the goods, buildings, and technologies you'll need to build and research and acquire. There are random events, and although it is a peaceful game, they are promising an optional military mode which will add combat to this, but it will be optional and it'll only be coming during early access. So this is one that is a different twist to the 4X city empire building that focuses on the empire building. It's not going to be for everyone, but maybe it's for some of you. Oh, also, as we're approaching the end of the list, I hope you consider subscribing and checking out the whole playlist of these kinds of videos linked below. Thank you. Now, if you prefer the space kind of 4X, Beyond Astra. Space 4X goes way back to Mass of Orion, and we've got Stellaris and Galactic Civilization. There's a lot of series that does 4X strategy in space. Beyond Astra is a new one looking for a 2025 release, and there is an alpha preview demo thing of this on Steam as well that you can just try out, and you'll be expanding your civilization, exploring mysterious planets and star clusters, interacting with your citizens and other life forms that you discover in space, and you'll be shaping your destiny. This one was crowdfunded on Kickstarter successfully, and it is now in full development. And one important point here is that there is simultaneous planet, surface, and space gameplay, so it's not just the space stuff, which there are a lot of games out there which are calling themselves Space 4Xs, but many of them are just spaceships flying around, and that's not quite what I look for in a 4X game, especially if you're looking for an alternative to Civilization. You need that planet base building, at least city building or something like that, that grounds your civilization in the 4X gameplay. And this one does have planet and space gameplay. You'll be tailoring your species, adaptability to climate, air composition, gravity, all of that you need to get your people ready for the planets you live on. There's city building and space station construction, economy, military, diplomacy, politics, science, culture, religion, many victory conditions, iconic pioneers which lead your civilizations, various unit types, skill trees, a bunch of resources, and ecology to manage on the actual planets. There is a lot being done here and being promised here. Deep and diverse exploration, huge management freedom, galactic warfare, and just so much. Beyond Astra is an insanely big vision of a game, and the demo is going, and we will see where this goes, but they are planning for a release in 2025. And remember, release dates and release windows are not when a game is going to release, it's just when they want to release. What it means by 2025, first of all, games can always be delayed. Sometimes games release earlier than expected. Other times a full release is converted to an early access release or vice versa. So we don't know exactly when all of this will be delivered. But Beyond Astra is something to look forward to this year. If you want the Space 4X gameplay, this one is at least trying to deliver pretty much everything. And yes, as a bonus mention, I'm going to talk about Civilization VII. So I know you're watching this list because you hate Civilization VII and you're looking for an alternative. But I do want to mention and remind everyone that the Civilization series of games always takes 2 years and 2 major expansions before they are, quote, complete. It was true of Civ 4, Civ 5, Civ 6, and it'll be true of Civ 7 as well. It also takes about 2 years and the 2 major expansions for the player base to exceed the previous game. That was true of the past many Civilization games as well. It took 2 years for Civ 5 to overtake Civ 4. It took 2 years for Civ 6 to overtake Civ 5. Every single game in the series so far has been more popular than the last, as far as I can tell, and they've been more successful than the ones that preceded them as well. Civ 5 exceeded Civ 4, Civ 6 exceeded Civ 5, that's just the numbers. Civ 7 will likely be considered better than the previous games as well, but most likely after 2 years. So Civilization 7, if you hate it now, you might not hate it 2 years from now. You can check back when it's on sale, where you can get the whole game at half the price, and where you might find it more worthwhile, because this will inevitably go on discount when it's actually complete with the first 2 major expansions. Then you might want to check back in with Civilization 7. Otherwise, if you want to see what Civilization 7 is in more detail, I have many videos covering it. Do check that on the channel. I've done exclusive gameplays, I've done coverage of specific mechanics, and discussed some more nuanced topics surrounding Civilization 7, in line with my extensive Civilization 6 coverage. So yeah, Civilization 7, you might hate it now, check back later, you might still hate it, but maybe not. Alright, that was a massive collection of games. Which one was your favorite, and do you think any others deserve a mention? Let people know down below in the comments. This is of course just one list of many that I've made. Maybe the game you're looking for is already in another video on the playlist. Check that linked on screen and down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.